Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt God nudging you forward, but you still stayed still because you weren't ready yet? Not because you didn't believe, not that you didn't pray, but because you weren't certain about the movement or the next thing that needs to happen. This week's pearl is trusting God enough to move, enough to take a leap of faith. If that sounds familiar, today's episode is just for you. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Pearls of Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Ebony Sade, and this week we'll be continuing our journey through Who Moved My Cheese. This month we'll be talking about trusting God through change, and today we'll be focused on what happens after awareness and after release, when God invites us to move for the better. Movement requires trust. One of the hardest parts of change isn't letting go, it's actually taking a step forward. Because movement requires trust. Trust that God sees something that we can't. Trusting in Him, He'll meet us in the motion. Trust that obedience matters more than certainty. We often want the full picture, to know like every single step before we move. But God usually gives us the direction in steps, not in maps. How we're tying this in with the book, Leaving the Maze. And who moved my cheese? The same characters. Remember, it was Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw. Only half of them remained stuck. Not because they didn't want to change, but because we're afraid of what happened when movement caught. So they wanted to stay in the same area because they were afraid of what could be or couldn't be. What if they didn't find their cheese next time? While others choose to move forward without any guarantees. They were ready to change. They knew beyond a shadow of doubt that they will find the next cheese if they just moved. However, there's a choice to step into the unknown, where growth begins. Not because they had all the answers, no, because they were willing to try. In Psalms 37:23, it tells us, the steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord. In Genesis 12:1 reminds us of Abraham's calling. Go to the land that I will show you. Notice the pattern? God doesn't always explain the destination. He simply invites obedience. Are you willing to trust Him? Movement is often an act of faith before it's an act of clarity. And I can attest so many times in my life where I was so afraid. Well, not really afraid, like uncomfortable, to do anything or to move because I knew like right here was safe, or it seemed like it was safe. But God was like, just trust me, let go. I got you. Obedience often comes before understanding. Here's the truth about that is both freeing and challenging. You don't need to be ready to be obedient. Sometimes the courage comes after taking this step, not before. God is not asking you to leap blindly. He's asking you to take the next step faithfully, however small. This week's Pearls of Wisdom is trust grows when you move with God, even before everything makes sense. I have a good example. So we were traveling during the holidays, right? And my littlest one, like, she loves to explore, but something about escalators, it did something to her. And so my husband's at the bottom of the stairs, telling her to come on. I was on the top. And I was like, you just gotta take a step and you'll be fine. And she was like, no, it's gonna eat my feet. I was like, no, you'll be fine. You'll be safe. We will both be here with you. And it took about like a good 5 minutes, and people, I guess, saw what was going on. They were cheering her on too. And she finally did it. She took a step. And at first she was like, it was like so tense. And then when we got to the bottom, she was like, that's it? That was it? So we had to run all the way back to the top. just to do it again, because she was like there had to be more to it. I was like, no, just take that step. Everything else will be fine, because it's just stairs. So, faith in action this week. Let's ask yourself an honest question. What one small step God is inviting me to take? Not a 5-year plan, not a life overhaul, just one step. And then pray, God, help me to trust you enough to move, even when I don't see the whole picture. Movement doesn't mean rushing. It just means responding. I have another example. When me and my husband were deciding to get out of the military, that was a hard decision. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was, I want to say it was during COVID. So during that time, we were starting to think, oh, maybe it's time to get ready to get out, because it was one of the few times that we experienced not only just the shutdown of everything, but also the government. We weren't getting paid for a little bit, and so that was devastating. We had emergency funds and all that, but that was an eye-opening. Like, this whole time we always heard it our entire life, like, the military is safe and all that, and that was one of the first time we experienced some uncertainty. Sorry. And then we started feeling again the next year. We're like, I think it's about that time, 2021. We just had our little one, and in 2020 we realized, like, our kids need us, especially their mom. I was in a job that deployed a lot, and they were, and as a supervisor, they're like, we need you to go out, even if you're injured. We need you to go because you're important. And I was like, yeah, I'm important, but my family's more important. So we had to take the necessary steps. And I don't know how to explain it, but so from the time we decided to get out of the military to the time where there's an extension or a leave that you can then take, where you can move back home or move wherever you want to retire at, and find a home, right? So before we had our orders, before we had the official approval, we were getting our house ready to get sold. Like, we were believing in God that this is correct, everything is going to be fine. It was scary though, because there's a chance, like, you can be homeless, right? But, like, because of that faith, because of that obedience, God was with us every step of the way. We was able to move out. We sold our home quickly, like, because we had a beautiful home. We sold it to a beautiful family. A wife was about to have a birth to their little kids, and so they were ready to have a home. So we sold it to them. Within a day, our stuff was approved. We took our kids out of disenrolled them from school because we were moving, and it was just like one step after another. Stuff was going quickly. Now, was it comfortable? No. I hate is just a strong word. I really, really dislike moving, but it felt good at that time because it felt free. We were leaving the military to be civilians again. So there was that. And then when we came to Texas, like, just that whole thing was challenging but beautiful. Like, we were able to be together as a family. We were able to come back home where our little ones can be with their grandparent, and that was just a beautiful thing. And then as we went through the process with the VA, like, we didn't know what to expect, honestly, but God met us there. So we were able to get full benefits for not just for me and my husband, but also for our kids. And so, like, just taking the small step, like, just making that decision really counts, and you'll see it that God will keep directing you. Don't get us wrong, we had our moments where we're like, I don't know if that was a good idea, but looking back now, we had more faith than fear, right? All right, let's close this out. Let's close this out with prayer. Lord, you see where my brothers and sisters feel stuck between faith and fear. You know the steps they hesitate to take, the uncertainty they're holding. I ask you to give them the courage to trust you in the motion, not perfection. Order their steps and meet them with peace as they walk with you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. So I hope you have a wonderful week as we continue picking out the pearls in every book, in every season. Until next time.